All right, so here we go to windward, we think. I am just feeling around for the wind direction by letting my sail out until I can feel it flutter a little bit, maybe. Sorry, I don't mean to walk away, Mike, but I'm trying to keep an eye on my boat. I can't see it. All right, here we're going some more. 02 is behind 98, which you can see. Pretty soon you'll sail away from me and I can see. All right. Not much I can do. I'm in a very disadvantageous position, so I'm going to just get off this guy's quarter and see if I can't get my boat to move someplace. In ultralight air sailing, it almost doesn't matter where your boat goes as long as it goes somewhere. And that's what I'm trying to do right now, is just get some boat speed going some direction. If I can get my boat to move, I'll let the sails out just a few notches, and then I'll trim them back in, assuming that I'm going to windward. It looks like this could be a reach here, so I have the sails trimmed about halfway in, starting to get some movement here. Not a lot, because in light air you don't get much. I let the sails out just a little bit more to see if I could go better, a little bit more. Wind appears to be mostly behind my boat, so I'm sailing on kind of a what would be called a broad reach, I believe. The wind is blowing over my windward side of my boat, and I'm just reaching along on a single tack for the mark. All the time I'm sailing, I continue to let the sail out a little and see if I can see some flutter in my sails, indicating that I've let it out too far. If I see any flutter, I trim it in just a little bit, so I think I'm sailing about the optimum wind angle on my boat. And in ultralight air like this, you just feel your way along. You let it out till you can see some flutter. You trim it back in and see if you can get your boat to go. If you need to sail a little higher and you let it out a ways, then you can turn your boat slightly more to windward and trim it back in. Go more toward the mark where you're trying to go. If this sounds kind of ill-organized, that's kind of the way I see light wind sailing to be. There's no scientific best way to do it. It's just a matter of feel. And the guy who manages what I would call the transitions, that is from right now we're sitting pretty much dead in the water, all of us, except for Bob, who's the farthest boat to the right, who's got some wind. But until you can see one of your counterparts or yourself get some wind in your sail and see the boat start to go, there's not much you can do. If you notice all of a sudden one of your counterparts is got his sails all the way out and they're moving right along and you don't, you immediately trim your sails all the way out, assuming that your boat will be pointed more or less the same direction as your counterparts. If you see one of your competitors pointing in a different direction than you are and going, you can scull your boat, that is, repeatedly push the rudder to one side or the other to get your boat to turn while it isn't moving in the water. And you can get your boat aligned with some of the competitors' boats who are moving, and perhaps you can get started moving. That's a technique that will help in ultralight air like this. If you see somebody start moving now, the boat with the green sail has got some air and he's starting to move a little bit. If you notice him departing from me and I think it's 98 behind him, he has some air. His sails are let out some. He's pointing more upwind than I am, so I am sculling myself around so that I'm headed hopefully more or less the same direction he is. I'm not getting that done very well, but I'm trying. You may hear some little clicking noises. That's me sculling the rudder around so that my boat will turn more where I believe the wind is from. I think I may have made it part way. My boat may start to move a little, very slowly. Yeah, it's starting to move a little. And if I can, I'm going to get up, headed more toward the mark than I am now. Hopefully I can go in the direction I want to go. I am on starboard tack, approaching a port tacker who I know, being probably Bob, will be immediately thrilled to get out of my way. Here we go. Still trying to head up a little more toward the mark, wherever that is. I can't see it among all the other boats. Oh yeah, is that it? Where is the mark? I still. Oh my, it marks way back there. That's not a good thing.
I'm not sure yet.
That being the case, I believe I will get on the other tack, because I'm going to have to tack.
This is a beautiful day, no wind.
Yeah.
All right, I'm headed up toward the mark now on starboard tack. I might actually make it around, who knows. So 98 is on the wrong side of the mark. Surely he doesn't think he's rounded. I'll be happy to inform him about that.
Three boats went the wrong side.
Okay, all the 3 boats who think they might be around the mark are mistaken. Myself and Bob are currently rounding the mark, I think.
Yeah, you and Carl are the only 2 who are.
Okay, Bob hasn't rounded yet?
No.
Okay.
Everyone else went the wrong side.
All right, I'm going to try to sail right out to the outside of these boats, if I can clear the boat that's ahead of me, get out where there aren't so many people. And once I do, I'm going to start turning downwind toward the finish line. Again, if my boat will move.
Carl will be sailing with me. Carl's boat has the green stripe near the top of the sail. I'm going to tack over onto port and head across the pond. I'm searching for wind. Don't seem to have very much. Mast goes up straight. That tells me that either I'm pointing too much into the wind or there isn't much wind. As soon as I get a little heel, I'd look to see if maybe I can point a little higher. So long as the boat continues to move and heel, that tells me I can point higher. So I feel my way across the pond, trying to stay as close to the wind as I can and still make some speed. Don't have a lot of wind, but I'm making headway. Anytime the boat heels a little more, I can maybe slack the sails a little. Probably would want to point up a little to see if I can. And if I can, continue pointing higher. Making my way on across the pond. I'm going to be over here sort of in the shadow of the tree, but sometimes the wind bends around it. And I'm going to hope that I'm going to be able to make one long starboard tack all the way to the mark. Sometimes this works. Feeling again for the wind. Maybe I'm pointing too much into it, and if I fall off a little, or maybe there just isn't any. Oh, here it goes. Here we go. So long as I'm pointing where I want to go, I can try to see if I can let the sails out a little and go faster, or I can put a little in the bank by sailing higher than I need to. Yeah, around the mark. Oh, Carl and I both thought he had gone behind the mark, and if he had, well, then I was clear from him, but he hadn't, and so we collided. He was on starboard, and I don't know if I was on port or not, but it doesn't matter too much because I was the upwind boat, so he had right away anyhow. So I'd owe him a circle. Okay, so that time the long port tack across the pond worked pretty well. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Anytime you take one of the outside courses, you run the risk of a major wind shift leaving you stuck on the wrong side of the course. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Okay, now let's regroup and try again. This next time I'll be trying a long starboard tack on the left side of the course. And Carl has agreed to do something different. I don't know what he's going to do at this point, but he won't take the long starboard tack. Okay, here we go. Have the boat moving nicely. I continue to try to point higher, and every time this mast begins to tip upright a little, I know I need to turn away just a little. And if the boat continues to move when I do, then I have wind. I'm using it right. Sometimes the wind will kind of die, and then you have to look for the wind, see which way to turn, or if there is no wind. Here's Carl kind of taking the middle route that I'll do next time. Okay, I've gone off the screen to the left. I'll be back out in a little while. Here I come. Kind of feeling for the wind again. I can see a little bit of heel and the sails are full, so it's got wind. It's just a question of using it just right. So I continue to feel for how to point to keep the boat moving. Here we go. The danger with the long starboard tack is not only that you'll be left out on the wrong side, but you then have to approach the mark on a port tack, and you don't have right of way over anyone coming in from starboard. So it's a risky strategy. Okay, next time I'm going to try up the middle. Now, if you look at, especially at big boat upwind strategies, they kind of most authorities will recommend that you take a middle course unless you have a good reason to go off to one side or the other. A good reason, especially for big boats, might be that you expect a persistent wind shift that would cause that side of the course to be favored. We don't have much in the way of persistent wind shifts because our races are so short in time duration usually. We worry more about the little, big shifts we often get at 30-second intervals. So the middle course can be better for us in some ways. It's not necessarily as good as it is for the big boats. But the reason it's good is that a big shift doesn't hurt you too bad, and little shifts you can play back and forth so that you're always heading pretty near to the mark. It's not nearly such a gamble as going way off to the left or way off to the right. Here we go. And again, I feel for the wind. If If I have the right amount of windward helm, my boat will help me by continuing to try to point into the wind just a little. And I let it point into the wind just a little to see if it can handle it, and if it can't, I very quickly ease it back out, keeping it moving, and watching the sail shape and the amount of heeling. The telltale may help. I find that the telltale doesn't so much tell me wind direction as it just tells me whether or not there really is any wind blowing. Often that's useful. If the wind's blowing, it's just a question of how do you point the boat. If you don't have a telltale, sometimes you're not sure whether it's a problem with the direction you're pointed or a problem of no wind. Most of the top sailors do not use telltales. Maybe they don't want to help out anyone else. Okay, there I am around the mark and headed back.